Hi, everyone. I am Violette, Ayala, the founder of FemCity. And today you're joining us for a great conversation about hormones and balancing. And we were prepping in the green room. I'm joined by Reverend Doc Lisa, who is from our FemCity expert team. And we had such a great conversation in the green room that I told her, I said, no, wait, we got to do this like when we go live because we're having a great conversation about hormones and balance. And so I really wanted to share what we were talking about in the green room with all of you. So she had asked me, oh, by the way, welcome, Rev Doc Lisa. I'm so happy
Thank
you're
you.
here.
It's so nice to be here.
I'm so excited to chat with you. I just skipped over everything. We were talking, I noted the other day, I'm not going to dye my hair anymore. I made a decision 2 weeks ago. That was it. I'm not going to dye my hair anymore. And I'm going to go all silver or gray or whatever color I will be. And Rev Doc Lisa just asked me my why. And so we were talking about that in the green room. And so I really wanted to share this with all of you. It was a decision I made. I'm going to be 52 years old. I've been through menopause. I'm on 2 years with no period. So I'm like, it's time. I'm just done with like spending time dyeing it, even though I love the people that dye my hair and I've been doing the all natural hair dye and all that stuff. I love them so much. I just feel like it's time for myself. So Lisa was adding to that why she was asking me. So Lisa, take over what we were talking about.
Well, I was so curious when you said that because it's something I work with women with their hormones and with fertility and PCOS and endometriosis. And one of the things that we do in that journey is look at the exposures that affect women's hormones that we live with today that we never lived with and that our daughters have more of. And hair dye is known to be toxic. And, people fight about what the evidence says, but my understanding it is, and my mother died of breast cancer, and my understanding is that it does increase the risk of breast cancer. And yet I've dyed my hair for many, many years. And I always share with people, well, we can't live in a cave. And there's a couple things that I do that I know are likely increasing my risk. And so when Violet, our founder, announced that she wasn't going to dye her hair anymore. And by the way, my partner, George, he doesn't want me to do it. Here in South Florida, women dye their hair. In other parts of the country, people go silver more. There's a cultural push. There's these different aspects. And he had said, Lisa, don't do it anymore. And I said, when my period's over, when I hit menopause for real, I will really consider it. And then our leader, our guide here talks about it. And I just wanted to really understand. It just felt so synchronous, and
Yeah.
because it's a big
How
thing,
interesting.
right? About you said you do it.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring in Dr. Serena also. So Dr. Serena, we're talking about hair dye and going silver. We'll go back to our format and conversation today, but I have started watching women transition into silver. I actually wanted to do it during the pandemic, but everyone was like, "Don't do it. You're so young. It's going to age you. You're going to look so old." And I'm like, you know what? That's the point. Like, I don't care. Like, I really am excited to see the silver, and I think it's going to look really healthy. And yeah, I'm excited to make the decision and to document it. I should probably be documenting it because that's what's inspired me. It's watching other women that have documented their transition into going all silver or whatever it's going to be. I have no idea. I don't know. It's like my curls. I don't know if you guys remember. I have naturally curly hair. I had no idea because I've been doing the keratin or the Japanese straightener since 1988 when I was in high school. And so when I stopped doing the keratin, I have locks of hair, like super curly hair. I had no idea. And so the same thing with this. I'm just kind of just diving in. I'm just so over it. So anyway, we have
great who you are in your wisdom years, right?
Yeah.
This is like,
yeah.
I love it.
And it does feel liberating. It does feel liberating. So I'm excited. I've even considered doing a pixie haircut, just shaving it off also, but that's a whole other conversation. All right. So we have Dr. Serena with us today as well. So we are going to talk about hormones in balance. We already had some love that came through from Delilah. Delilah said she is sending love from FemCity Brownsville. And then we have some more love that came through as well. Love this. So yeah, we're going to keep on talking about it. With FemCity, we're going to talk more about the wellness component of life as we continue to finish out the year. But we know that this is a really big topic for women, and we want to make sure that we always give them the information they need to live a happy and balanced life. Rev Doc Lisa, can you share a little bit about yourself, about your background for those that don't know you?
Sure. I am a healer in Miami, Florida. I'm a licensed acupuncturist, herbalist. I have extra certification in women's health and fertility. I've been doing work around hormones, because everything's kind of connected to hormones, for about 13 or 14 years in my practice. Former life, corporate finance lawyer, realized I wanted to do something that would help people and grow myself and others. So I shifted over, but I still have that like sort of analytical mind, which helps when I'm working with, and big picture mind, which helps when I'm working with people. I also teach something called Safe Conversations, which I think I love it because it helps us be more loving people. And as Dr. Serena and I know, the body, mind, and spirit are all connected. So health in one sphere really does trickle down and influence the other spheres of you as a human being. And that's a bit about me.
Love that. I'm going to try to change the format so it features the person that's speaking. So just bear with me while I do the little switcheroo. And let's see if I can do this. And now we're going to go ahead and do Dr. Serena. So Dr. Serena, share a little bit about yourself as well.
Of course. So hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Serena, and I'm a naturopathic doctor also in South Florida. And a lot of my work revolves around hormones, weight, gut, thyroid, mood, and stress. So really when I'm looking at someone and approaching where they're at, it's not, of course, I'm looking at the symptoms, but it's also how did you get there? What emotions could be involved? We can even really go deeper into have these patterns happened in the past. Because a lot of the times what I've noticed in health is people could do all the right things. And then where I come in is, hey, how can we make a long-term plan out of it? Keep looking back into that intuition. What does that intuition even feel like? And could it be covered by the symptoms? And then how can you also feel more confident to grow, not just in your health journey, but also as a person and in your life as well.
Love it. Love it. All right. So let's dive in. So the questions we have for today are, what is your biggest industry secret when it comes to hormones and balance? Of course, these are the two experts that are joining us today. I'm so happy that you guys are here. So Rep Doc Lisa, what is the biggest industry secret when it comes to hormones and balance?
Wow, there are so many. The biggest industry secret, I think, is that we are actually in a hormonal crisis and a fertility crisis. So, because hormones have to do with fertility. And it's not really a secret because Dr. Serena Swan, who is a foremost epidemiologist, wrote a book last year, kind of allocating and the facts and giving us an understanding of what's really going on. So just briefly, because of toxicity that we're exposed to, mostly, that's most of the reason that have been increasing since the industrial shifts that happened after World War II. Sperm counts have fallen half since World War II. And fertility has gotten much more difficult. She said something about on current track, little boys born now, in 20 years, half of them will not be able to father children naturally. So I do work with fertility with men and women. That's a shocking statistic, right? And then, fertility clinics are just booming. We have PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. That's booming. If you have it and you have a child, your daughter's more likely to have it. Endometriosis is on the rise. So we're having this sort of like, what is going on with our hormones? Our hormones are messed up. And from a large perspective in the industry, we know that's going on. And so while I work with people one-to-one to work on their own individual balance with acupuncture and herbal medicine, I also need to teach them about what's going on for all of us and how that affects them and their families. And then they can make small incremental changes that become habits to really no longer be enslaved to what's going on a little bit out there. And this isn't to sort of freak out everyone and scare them, because you really are empowered to make changes. We were talking about one of them that I haven't made yet, which is a hair dye thing. But so it's not just you go to someone and they help you. It's literally you're changing your lifestyle, as Dr. Serena actually talked about a little bit too. That's the secret.
So the secret, so you're thinking that the first changes are like, I know you're using hair dye as an example, but just making the smaller changes like going natural, not dyeing your hair might be one of the biggest things you can do to balance your hormones.
The biggest thing you can do really is water. Our biggest exposure is to our water. And so making sure that the water that we drink and cook with all the time, if you can't do the shower, I understand not everybody can afford integrating a filter system into their home. But not drinking water out of plastic bottles. Plastic leaches phthalates. That is a hormone disruptor. When I grew up as a child, we didn't have water bottles, right? We didn't drink. And so the younger you are, ironically, the more likely you are to have fertility problems. Older men have better sperm than younger men these days. It's so weird. And it's because of a lot of these things. So back to what you said, yes, water's a big one. So if you only make one change, we talk about water. And I have a little silly little video I made a couple of years ago about, your water is toxic. It's on my YouTube channel, and it's like a 4-minute thing, but it gives people an idea of why water is so important and the kinds of things you can do to sort of start shifting that.
So
Water,
just
products, perfume, cleaning. A big one is dryer sheets, which are just like really toxic. But there's lots of things.
Okay. Wow. All right. So so I'm using the natural cleaners that don't have any of the dye. Is that making a difference? I mean, does that make a difference when we choose those that don't have dye and don't have all the fragrances and things like that?
Yes, you're very much empowered to make choices, and thank goodness we have these products out there now. Dyes and scents, those artificial ones tend to be pretty volatile compounds that can change your hormones, so that if you just want to like no artificial dyes and scents, you're making a big impact right there, right?
Okay. And I will say, I know that sometimes people will say, well, it's so expensive. And I think at grocery stores, those products are expensive, but they have so many. I just bought some from a small business. They sell it on Amazon. They're little capsules. It's actually good for the environment. The package comes very biodegradable. And it was so inexpensive. It was cheaper than most of the bigger brands that we see out there that do have the fragrances. So I know that sometimes the conversations like this will be like, well, I can't afford it, but there are some really good alternatives out there. You just won't see them at the grocery store. But on places like Amazon, you can find some of the more homemade ones that don't have all that toxicity, and they actually are quite inexpensive. I've saved money. I bought 2 boxes. I'm still working my way through it. It's unbelievable.
That's fantastic. And honestly, as the consciousness percolates through the culture, there's more and more and more and more stuff available. I mean, I started paying attention to this maybe 20 years ago, and there was very little. So now there's a lot now. It's great.
Yes. Yeah. All right, let's go to, I'm going to change the format again so that we can highlight Dr. Serena. Dr. Serena, what are some of the tips that you have for us today when it comes to hormones and balances as well?
Yes, so one of my favorites that I see, but not everyone always wants to hear, is that there's no magic pill. There are so many times where we think, oh, just do hormone replacement therapy or the birth control pill or birth control overall, or what's the supplement that I can take to balance hormones? Well, really the key piece is that our whole endocrine system encompasses about 7 different hormones, 7 different organs. On the other side of it too, we also have our heart, which is actually starting to become known as another type of endocrine organ. Fun fact, our heart also secretes hormones in and of itself. So it's like hormones are constantly talking to each other, constantly moving. While at the same time, that could also, in this metaphorical sense, say, okay, how can we also step back, listen to our body, that it's not about doing all the things or looking for that one quick answer, but what can we truly incorporate into our life that, again, will help us grow spiritually, emotionally, intuitively, and all those other aspects as well. Like commonly when I work with patients, a lot of the times, a little further down the line, they start having their own awareness of, oh, so these supplements are kind of my dailies. These I sort of have in the back cabinet. And maybe if that really stressful event from life happens or they're going through something, they also know which supplements to go for, which supplements they can kind of bring now to the front of the cabinet, because they're understanding that it's more like balanced hormones, balanced life. It's not trying to throw things at your body and say, fingers crossed, I hope you heal, because that's sort of a dissociation. You still need to come back into love and loving your body, as I'm noticing too, as I'm wearing green for the heart chakra as well. So it's really understanding that we're all so interconnected. We may have similar hormone imbalances, but how we got there may be for very different reasons, which means how your intuition is going to grow in your path versus someone else is going to be very different. And so again, it's not necessarily that magic pill. You could do things that can help and evolve, but then when that creates space for something new, what would it mean to be open to another modality of healing or another thought process, which too is synonymous to life?
Yeah, I love that. And, I'm listening to you guys speak. So I'm a former Pilates instructor, certified Pilates instructor, and former certified personal trainer. So I was in that world for a good 20 years. And I never learned nutrition stuff, ever, ever, ever. And I was vegetarian since 1988, since I was a junior in high school. So I have gone through this journey of being a vegetarian / vegan. I go through like these moments of being vegan, which for me, I was a very happy vegan. I love vegetables. It was never a big deal for me. But I got the glucose patch, and I've been sharing a lot. I've been wearing it now for a year. I'm no longer considered diabetic, but I was gestational diabetic with all 3 kids. And I was always in that little place of pre-diabetic. And I got this glucose patch, and it has changed the way I look at nutrition, hormones, balance, like everything, because what you were saying, Dr. Serena, is like what's good for someone may not be good for somebody else. And what I recognize, and Rev Doc Lisa has been with me for dinner as I watched for dinner and meals and stuff as we hung out together in our last retreat. I'm definitely very sensitive to many, many things. And so it spikes often. So it was really good for me to, as you said, get to know yourself, a little bit better, look at the data, look at the information, and tweak it. And I'm feeling better than ever. My HRV levels are finally like really optimal, which I'm so happy about. But, what's good for one person isn't always good for the other person. So I love that the tips that you both have shared. Yeah. All right. So I think we have a question that came through. All right. So here's a question. As someone who recently, about 1 to 2 years, went through menopause, I'm considering HRT, bioidentical as natural as possible. What do you recommend as a place to start? Which tests, etc., to determine which HRT would be best for me, and what other options do you recommend checking out? My gynecologist says starting within 2 years of menopause is recommended to reduce any negative side effects. So I want to start the process now. Who wants to take that? I was gonna say, I never did that through menopause. I've been 2 years without any kind of menstruation. I didn't suffer bad at all, like maybe a couple hot flashes. So I'm very lucky and very blessed. I understand, because when those hot flashes hit, oh my God, it was awful. It was like a fire inside my soul burning. Like it was just horrible. So I can imagine when people are looking for solutions, because I can't imagine doing that for like 10 years. Who wants to take that? Rev Doc Lisa, you want to try first, and then we go to Dr. Serena?
Oh, why don't we let Dr. Serena, because she would be more likely to actually work with those hormones.
Okay, let's go to Dr. Serena.
Yeah, and that's actually such a common question. So I'm very glad you asked that. I would say, so hormone replacement, it's not that I'm against it, but I do believe it's just a tool in our toolbox and something that we could always have on hand. When I do work with from perimenopause, menopause, to even kind of going into that postmenopausal woman, I'm really looking at the whole spectrum of how our hormones are truly coursing through our body. So what begins to happen is our adrenal glands, which are the 2 glands on top of the kidneys, tend to take over for more of the hormone production. So unfortunately, blood tests, so coming from the testing side, blood tests will test what's both free and bound in the body, or what's active and inactive. So if they're testing hormone levels like estrogen, progesterone, and so forth, your levels may actually look normal, but you don't feel fantastic. The test that I do when we get into the more functional and specialized is when we look at through urine or saliva, and we could look at what's free. So this is what's actually going on in the body. Some of the tests that I'll also do will also talk about all these different types of estrogen, because from the premenopause, we have this main type of estrogen called estradiol, but around menopause, postmenopause, we're shifting into a less potent one called estrone. So this is where it's, potentially, again, not always an absolute, where weight gain may happen, because where estradiol promotes the more symmetrical face, the nice hips, the fertility. Well, that's not necessarily needed later on. And that's more of what the adrenals produce, is the estrone. The other big piece is looking at cortisol curve. So theoretically, our cortisol should be highest in the morning, and then it drops throughout the day for melatonin to rise. And good sleep is going to be really important, which I know is a caveat with hot flashes, because most of our sex hormones, thyroid, cortisol, blood sugar, and all those that are so important to actually get made throughout the night. So instead of, again, just jumping right to whether it's a pharmaceutical or even a supplement, where I would encourage is to step back and say, hey, what would these tests show? What would my cortisol curve look like? Because if we can adjust the cortisol curve, we can adjust the hormones curve as well, and how those are produced. The second big caveat when it does come to menopause is that even though there's so much focus on hormones, it's actually blood sugar that should take the slightly higher precedence when it comes to working with hormones as well, because they are actually very interconnected. So managing blood sugar, looking at hormones, bone health is also going to be an important piece, But fortunately, we can also have those standard of care type conversations as well. Because really where I'm looking is that at some point down the line, we may want to get off of hormone replacement. But if we haven't worked on all the concerns that kind of led us to all these symptoms, it's only going to get 10 times worse 10, 20 years down the line. And it may even be harder to not only get off hormone replacement, but we don't really know how to, how we've challenged biology if we're going into like our 70s, 80s plus with it either. So what I'm saying now is let's really work on what we need to, especially the huge emotional component that tends to come with it. Work from the hormones, the cortisol, the blood sugar. We could do these specialized tests, take blood work into consideration, make sure you're doing your standard of care. And then again, be able to grow with whatever therapies and know that you also have choices instead of just a solely one or the other. Like you can really come up with a solid plan.
I love that. And I'm listening to you and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if I didn't have the menopause symptoms as rough as everybody else because I stopped the sugar, because I did the glucose monitor, the continuous glucose monitor patch. I've been doing it for so long that I wonder if maybe that's why, because at the same time I reduced all my sugar. So that could be a reason why I didn't have that.
It could be a huge piece because like estrogen is a type of growth hormone, insulin is a type of growth hormone. And as it is, we already have so many blood sugar type related issues. So, even though even when I work with people too, it's like I'm always kind of monitoring their hemoglobin A1C and their glucose just because that's also indicative too of what could be going on with your adrenals and stress. And chances are there's also a past history of painful periods and birth control. So a lot of women, they're already aware, there's already been something in our past. So what an amazing time to say, hey, there's already these internal changes going on. How can I manifest that outwards? Really take this time to learn about my body, because blood sugar too is metaphorically the sweetness of life. So you're going into all these transitions. So what can you also bring into your life that's also even sweeter?
I love that. All right, so we are going over time, and I want to make sure we get it close to 25 minutes so I can actually add this over to Instagram. For whatever reason, when I add it to Instagram, it gets wonky. If it's longer than 25 minutes, it gets a little wonky. So I want to make sure that we can share it there, and you have some love there. I love that. Rev Doc Lisa, your final advice for hormones, balance, all that jazz.
Just to add a little bit to the menopause thing, we've been treating Chinese medicine menopause symptoms for thousands of years, and every woman is in fact unique, and we look at the symptoms that she has. And so it's not just here, just take this supplement and do whatever, but it does work, especially for things like insomnia and the hot flashes. And more importantly, how a woman transitions in menopause is a huge indicator of how healthy she is anyway. And so exactly what you said about the blood sugar, you were regulating that. And so perhaps that had a lot to do with how easeful your transition was. It's a natural transition. And so if it's hard, there's something underlying that's going on that's making it hard. In other countries where women are healthier, hormonally, blood sugar wise, they don't have the same difficulties with menopause that we do. And so it's a huge time and opportunity, just as Dr. Serena said, to look at your overall health and say, okay, maybe I'm going to get off the pill. Maybe I'm going to regulate my cycle. And then as it starts to wean out, move into this transition naturally with the support of natural medicine that's out there. There's so many different people and professions that can help you do this naturally. Because at the end of the day, we're supposed to kind of not have estrogen. And if we have too much estrogen and we are supplementing estrogen, then the risk of uterine cancer does go up. Because naturally, we are supposed to have less of those certain estrogens that we have when we're fertile. So to mask the natural way that our bodies go forever is asking for other problems, if that makes sense. So it's a great menopause to move into that more natural way.
Yeah, I love that. And again, it's personal choice, right? Do the research. It's personal choice at the end of the day.
Everything is personal choice.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'd like to say to close it out is, yes, you don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to do everything. If you want to move into a more natural space, there are people that can help you, but it's not to say it's overwhelming. It's just little bits at a time. It's all a journey,
Yeah. Rev Doc Lisa, what's the best way for femmes to find you, to learn more about the work you're doing in this world?
Instagram at Integral Healer, Facebook at Integral Healer, and YouTube at Integral Healer. Best way.
That's super easy. That's like mine. Mine are all the same. It's just my name. That's how you can find me and everywhere. Dr. Serena, your final tip, and then how can femmes find you to learn more about the work you're doing in this world?
All right. Final tip, always take those moments throughout the day. I suggest at least 1 or 2, those 5 minutes. Take some breaths, go outside, see how you could best integrate all that you've learned and all that you've done at different breaks throughout the day. It's going to help with your health and stress too.
I love that. And the best way for femmes to find you?
And the best way is my website below, drserenagoldstein.com. On there, I have some fabulous guides about honing in on those symptoms and intuition, and plus lots of fantastic articles and resources.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love this. I'm actually thinking we could repurpose this for the podcast. So if you're listening to our podcast, this was what happened. I loved it so much. I thought, let's add it to the podcast. So it is, it's been wonderful learning from the two of you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy day to share your wisdom with us. And for those that would like to see more, we'll be back next week with another segment. See you then. Bye.
Bye.